Peace and welcome to the show, folks. Tonight we got a great show for you here on the Culture on the Black Star Network. Tonight we're going to start the conversation off talking about the lawsuit that was filed by former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores, talking about the impact of the lawsuit on the NFL and just a larger conversation about black head coaches and black leadership within the NFL. We're going to be checking in and talking about that. Also, folks, can we at least discuss the banning of books? Yes, there's a big movement happening right now, and we're finding that a lot of books are being taken off of the must-read list for students and adults. So we'll talk about the implications of that. And then later, of course, we're talking about trends, post, and doing the most. So we got a lot to get to. We got the Culture crew and a whole lot more. So stay with us. It's the Culture on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the show. Tonight, we have a great show. We have a lot to talk about. But one of the big things I wanted to at least start the conversation off with is the fact that this is our second day doing this show here on the Black Star Network. And as always, we are so excited to bring you the conversations, to bring you the topics and the ideas that we think that are powering our culture. But just know that we're not going to always be on the same page. Just know that we're going to sometimes, challenge each other a little bit, but it's okay. Because one of the key points about this platform is that it is a platform where we're inviting people to be a part of the discussion. And most importantly, we need to hear each other out. We need to make sure that everyone at least has something or has the opportunity to say something. And once they have the opportunity to say something, then we can start to dissect it. We can break it down. We can analyze it, we can challenge it, whatever we need to do. But the point is, there has to be some conversation. There has to be some deep dive into what we are all a part of, which is this culture. And so these next few conversations that we have tonight are not going to be conversations where, we just want to get one point of view. We are trying to make sure that we include as many different vantage points as possible, because we want to make sure that we understand the complexity of these issues. And then most importantly, we want to get a better understanding of these issues. So we can at least walk away from this show. You can walk away from the show saying, you know what? I never thought of it that way. I thought that it was one way. This person had enlightened me. And the other part about it, folks, is that we ask you to be open-minded. Because some ideas you may not have considered, some of the ideas you may say, well, that sounds like a bunch of BS. But if you're open-minded enough, if you just hope that we're all on the same page and trying to get to the same place, which is we're trying to get to a better place in this country, then hopefully we'll find ourselves there. All right. So I just wanted to throw that out there for you to let you know that the culture is the platform for us to have some of the big conversations, the small conversations, the comfortable ones, and the uncomfortable ones, okay? So we'll have those discussions here. Tonight, though, I do want to get into the conversation about Brian Flores. Now, this was the NFL head coach of the Miami Dolphins, formerly of the Miami Dolphins, that decided that, he was fired. He attempted to go to other teams, did not get picked up. Even though he was only with the Miami Dolphins in a smaller period of time, he decided to file a lawsuit against 3 teams within the NFL. And it has caused a furor of people of just wanting to know, well, why is it taking this? Why is he doing this? And what does he plan to get out of this situation? And all of those things. So, today we're going to have a discussion with a retired Miami sports journalist, Mr. Tony Segredo, to give us some insight of what's going on down in Miami. And, does this situation, this latest lawsuit, and some would say this latest gut punch to the NFL when it comes to its race relations, will it really put a dent in what we're seeing as the behemoth structure of the National Football League. So I want to bring Tony into the discussion. Also, we're going to be joined by Elijah Miles, who serves as the founder of the Tendea family. He's going to be joining us in a moment. But Tony, let's bring you into this discussion. Tony, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Farajii. Thank you so much, and honored to be with you today. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the culture took a gut punch last night and through the day today, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take to recover from it, because it was a stunning accusation or accusations by Brian Flores. Stunning to the point where you felt like you had to read it 2 or 3 times to make sure you read it properly.
Right. And essentially, Mr. Flores was saying that it was about race. It was about discrimination.
Yeah, well, I can understand where he's coming from, and the situation, just to sort of set it up, he was being interviewed for the New York Giants job, and inadvertently, Bill Belichick, the head coach of the New England Patriots, who Brian used to coach for, Bill Belichick sent Brian a text which was meant for Brian Daboll, another former assistant of Belichick's, who was the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. And the text read, "Congratulations on getting the Giants job." And Brian Flores wasn't quite sure where this is coming from. And after some investigating on his own, realized that this text was meant for Brian Daboll. And that his interview was basically just, smoke and mirrors, or in his words, a sham. So he went in there. He was, interestingly enough, and again, he was asked this morning on the CBS Morning News about how he felt going into that interview, knowing good and well that Brian Daboll had already been given the job or had already been selected for the job. And he said the range of emotions went from anger to frustration to sadness to unbelief. He just went through this range of emotions, and I can't even imagine him having to go through that. So it's going to be a very interesting time, I think, Farajii, for the NFL, how the NFL handles this. There's so much more to this story. And probably somewhere in the middle lies the truth. But regardless of the middle, the way I always look at these things is, if this is really what happened, what an absolute travesty.
Yeah.
And if this isn't what happened, what an absolute travesty, because it's out there now. But my one addendum to all of that, and again, I wasn't in any of the rooms.
Yeah.
But from what I know about Brian Flores, it's hard to believe that he would make something up like that. I just from everything I've known about him and have heard about him, and from the people I've spoken with who have been with him in a very close encounter, it's hard to believe that he would come up with something like that, because you shake your head going, how in the world could that happen?
Yeah. So, okay, a couple of things come to my mind about this situation, Tony, that I think that we need to kind of highlight. One is the fact that Brian Flores, he was hired back in 2019 by the Miami Dolphins. He was fired January 10th of this year. With his 2 seasons that he was with the Dolphins, he really took the Dolphins out of a slump. He was 10-6. They were 10-6 in 2020. They were 9-8 in 2021. Prior to that, they really didn't have a winning season since 2003. So what would be the basis for the firing of him as a coach, considering that there are other coaches who have been in place who might go 3 and 4 seasons without really making any gains, but they stick around. What was the reason from the Dolphins' point of view?
Well, before I get to the actual reason, the reason that was used, I do want to mention that record you talked about for Brian Flores, he did that record with a very subpar roster and a very subpar quarterback. I mean, he really pulled a rabbit out of his hat to win these games, and he did it in a way that he's a tough, hard-nosed, rigid, disciplinarian type of head coach. And what he did was, quite frankly, remarkable with the roster he had. Now,
Right.
the official term of the firing came from something to the effect of we couldn't collaborate well with Brian. There wasn't collaboration with Brian. Now, there's another accusation that Brian threw out there, and again, this is an alleged accusation, that allegedly this happened. And you know how the NFL works, Farajii, and for those who maybe don't, the teams that have the worst record get the first or second or third choice when it comes to getting college talent in the draft.
Right.
So according to this accusation that Brian made a couple of years ago, or a year ago, Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, at the time the Dolphins were really struggling, and he offered Brian Flores $100,000 for every game that he lost.
So wait, hold on, Tony. Wait a minute, Tony.
Yeah, if you want me to repeat that, I would be more than happy to repeat it.
Please repeat it, because that sounds like you're getting rewarded to lose.
Well, exactly, and you're getting, there's a whole, Brian, we could be doing this until June. There's this whole consternation also on why should teams that perform poorly get awarded when teams that work their butts off to do well suffer, right? And it's all about the haves and the have-nots, and we can do that at another time. Yeah. But basically, when they were losing and they were having a season, and there was a quarterback that everybody wanted, the allegedly, again, the accusation is that Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, offered Brian $100,000 for every game that he lost. Basically, the insinuation here is that, losing the games is not so bad. Maybe we can tank some of these games. Maybe we can put ourselves in a position to get this number one quarterback that we all want. Now, mind you, I also need to point this out. And I don't think, and I can be pretty well assured of this, that the players had no idea of this. When a player steps foot on the field, he is all about competition. If for nothing else, for himself, to better his stock within the league. He is not going out there thinking, I'm going to, play it, halfway here. However, a head coach has the ability to move players in and out in certain situations where they may not have the best players in a certain situation, and they wind up losing the game. So that's why, again, according to the accusation and the alleged offer that came from Stephen Ross was, you get $100,000 for every game that you lose.
And that's hey, Tony, I want to make sure that we're clear for our watchers and listeners. You get $100,000. That's in his personal pocket. That's not like a coaching staff team. That's that's in his pocket. That's just for him. Absolutely. Wow.
Absolutely.
And so I'm wondering.
Farajii, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure. Go ahead.
That's more than just a wow. That is, you have got to be kidding me. And then you can add wows in all capital letters followed by about 100 exclamation points.
Right. Like first, Tony, and I'm not throwing any shade on your experience, but you've been around, you've been reporting on sports and you've been doing sports journalism for years. Have you ever heard of something like that?
No, the only thing I've heard of, Sean Payton got penalized for this, the former coach of the New Orleans Saints. I have heard bounties that
I remember players
were offered. Yeah, they were offered bounties. And now there's always been this sort of crooked eye look that teams that were struggling, teams that only had won one game or had won no games or whatever, that their last 5 games, I wonder if they're going to cash it in. I wonder if they're going to tank so they can get that number one pick. There's always been this sort of, pall over teams. What are they going to do? And my pushback always was, again, the player. The player's not going to go out there, because the first time you don't compete at a high level, that's the time you put yourself in the position to get seriously injured and your
Yep.
career could be over. So I always sort of push back on that. But again, if the coach is involved, that's a whole different ballgame. So I have never, I've been doing this for well over 40 years now, Farajii. I've heard of the bounties, and we saw the result of that. And I'm sure that, there's part of things. I've heard about incentives in contracts, but the incentives have always been for something positive. How many catches you've made, how many touchdowns do you have, how many tackles have you made, etc. We go down the list. But in this case, I have never heard anything quite like this before. And that's why it's so shocking. And again, we need to continue to press home that these are accusations, that this allegedly happened. Again, but the other side of you goes, is this, how can you even make this up?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where in your wildest fantasy, could you make this up?
So we got to take a quick pause, Tony. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation with you. I'm going to bring in Culture Crew member Elijah Miles to get his take on it. But I want to go further into the details of this lawsuit and the implications of this lawsuit, because I think that is the big part of this that we shouldn't just gloss over. The implication is the NFL has a black head coaching problem. The NFL has a black leadership problem. And we're seeing it more. It seems like the conversations are happening, but the action behind the conversations are lacking. And I want to get your take on that when we get right back. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more with Mr. Tony Segreto, who is a retired Miami sports journalist and broadcaster. We got the Culture Crew, Elijah Miles. And, of course, I want to get some of your thoughts as well. So stay with us. We got a lot to get to coming up here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the
the voice of Black America rolling.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, we've been talking about the latest developments in the case and in the news of Brian Flores, so the former head coach for the Miami Dolphins, who filed a 58-page lawsuit against the Dolphins and three other NFL teams, alleging that those teams had used discrimination, racial discrimination, in their hiring practices. Now, Mr. Flores has said that in his attempts to go out for jobs with the New York Giants and other teams, that they did not inform them that they either already chose someone or that they kind of kept putting his interview in a place where they really didn't take it seriously. He said that in some cases it looks like it was a sham. So we've been talking to retired Miami sports journalist Mr. Tony Segreto to give us some insights in the latest developments on this case and on the story. And we're also going to be joined in a moment by community organizer and founder of Tendea Family, Elijah Miles, who's a part of the Culture Crew, to let me know what his insights are. So let's go back into the conversation. Tony, again, we thank you so much for your time. We know that you are ripping and running, but we appreciate this time to talk with us this afternoon.
I am honored to be with you, Farajii, and this is such a volatile time right now. And I have to share with you just briefly on a personal note. I was brought up in the era where one of my closest, if not my closest friend in high school, when we'd walk to the bus stop together, he would have to go sit in the back of the bus, and I would go on road trips with my parents, and you would see separate water fountains and separate showers. And my first interview, the first interview I ever did, was with the great Jesse Owens. And to hear his stories about discrimination, you would have hoped. I think we've made tremendous progress. You may think differently, but from what I watched and where we are, but I don't think it's nearly. It could have been a lot better, and nearly not enough, and we still have a long way to go. And I think one of the things we should bring out is that what Brian Flores did, and again, we are stressing these are accusations, these are alleged things that have happened according to Brian Flores.
Right.
Regardless, Brian Flores stepping out like this has basically committed professional suicide. And
so Tony, I'm so happy that you brought that up, because we find that the NFL just doesn't respond they don't respond well to bad publicity.
No,
if you show a spotlight on the shortcomings of the league, you can expect not to get as much attention, or even please don't even talk about a job. At this point, do you think that Brian or Mr. Flores is even expecting to get a job?
Well, I think the NFL is backed in a corner, because if he doesn't get a job, what that may do is validate everything that Brian's talking about. So he's taken a flyer. He's flat out said, listen, I know I'm putting my career on the line here. So he was asked why he did this. And his answer was, I really want to create change. I really want to see change happen, not just glossed over. And again, I think there's this genuine feeling around the league internally by some that this is just we're sort of going through the motions here. We're doing what we have to do, but we're not going further than that. And to your point, I think that perception again, and as we well know, perception is reality. perception is the NFL wants to hear from you, but they only want to hear the good things. They don't want to hear the bad things from you, because if they hear the bad things, they're just going to turn an ear and they go, no, we've got this. Well, maybe they don't got this anymore.
No, Tony, you and I both know they don't got it, nor do they get it.
Yeah, I have to tell you, Farajii, I woke up this morning very, I don't want to be over dramatic here, but I just woke up disgusted. I woke up and I'm thinking about the Miami Dolphins franchise. I'm thinking about the late Don Shula, the late Wayne Huizenga, the owner who sold it to Stephen Ross, the original owner, Joe Robbie. I'm thinking, my goodness gracious, thank God they're not here to see this and hear this. I've heard from longtime Dolphin fans who have just flat out said they're disgusted and disgraced. And again, we're not hearing, this all hasn't been flushed out, but there's a tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell has written in his great book. Yep. Every situation has a tipping point, and this may be it. I'll tell you what, can you imagine? Would you love to be a fly on the wall in the administrative offices of the Miami Dolphins today?
Oh, please. Come on, Tony. You know what? Please.
All right, here's the other question for you. Here's the other question for you. How would you like to be one of the people in the sales department who had about 10 calls to make today to prospective season ticket holders? How do you go about your business?
You
How
can't
do you win people back? Yeah. How do you?
And I think that's the big problem, Tony. And I want to bring in culture crew member Elijah Miles. Elijah, that's the problem. That when we get these type of issues in a public space, racial issues, if you're depending on the organization, depending on the institution, they oftentimes get swept under the rug, or some PR campaign or some statement comes out. And it doesn't get to the heart of the matter, which is the NFL has a race problem. What's your take on that, Elijah?
I think this brings to the forefront a great conversation that we can have about racism in the NFL. Whether the Brian Flores situation turns out the way we would like it to turn out, or it turns out that the Dolphins were discriminating, or just the NFL is discriminatory, it brings a conversation about equity. And I think that's an important conversation to have. Because what you see in the NFL is that over 50% of the players are black, but only 3% of the head coaches are black. And so there needs to be some equity in the NFL, because if it's going to be an overabundance of black people in there, then we need black people in leadership positions all across the NFL. They don't have the choice to just leave us out of one part of it, and fully included in the other part of it. Another thing it brings to mind for me, brother Farajii, is it's a great Baltimore slam poet named Black Chakra, and he has a poem about the NFL. And in the first line of the poem, he says, "When my son asks me that he tells me that he wants to be in the NFL, I tell him that we are done with field work." And so the NFL has a lot to do when it comes to racism and different things like that, because it's often associated among black people as the plantation for our talented black people black men all across the country. So it brings to light a great conversation that we can have about race.
And to your point, Elijah, Tony, it's interesting that this situation comes after we have seen the NFL put millions of dollars into the Inspire Change campaign, which is just that, a campaign, right? Where I feel like it comes from, Roger Goodell's office more so than from the offices of these owners of these teams. But as they put this together, I remember as I was watching throughout the season, reading on the helmets, "In racism, stop this," you know what I mean? And all of these things, this messaging, the messages were something like, "Oh, the NFL is going to take a proactive approach." The messaging was, "Oh, the NFL is going to change its ways." Oh, the messaging was, we know that we really messed up with Colin Kaepernick. We're going to do better. And then this happens. So, in your opinion, in your experience, Tony, Can the NFL recover? Can they redeem themselves? Or they just got to deal with this thing straight on? What can they do? Because they're not doing anything right now.
To your, first of all, to your point, I think from Goodell's office is one thing, but then what teams do is another, right?
Exactly.
These are multi-million dollar, sometimes billion-dollar owners who go, listen, this is my candy store. I'm going to do with it what I want, right? Okay, so you've got it at the top. So where is the disconnect, and how do we control all of that? I think the NFL has to take this head on. I really do. I don't think this lawsuit is going to extend into a period of time where I believe that they are going to have to make, I don't know if they're going to be able to sweep this under the rug. I really don't. I think it's going to be different than before. Or at least I hope it is. I've said this before too, that I've seen other issues where, goodness me, you hope that now everybody stands up and their eyes are wide open and they can see the issue. But I can tell you this, there are a lot of phone calls going on today. There's damage control going on today. And I hope there is unearthing of the entire truth to this. Okay. We know what Bill Belichick, we know what the texts are. The texts are there.
Right.
The rest of it we need to figure out, because this is such a black eye. This is not just one black eye. This is two black eyes, and as we led the show off, a gut punch to the entire league.
And Tony, I got a couple of moments left, but I'm wondering, because the other part of this conversation is about the Rooney Rule, which is based on that it requires teams to interview minority candidates for their open positions. So how does that apply in this situation? And it sounds more like an attempt to force teams, instead of teams looking for qualified, black or brown applicants, to force teams to do it. Like they can go through the process, but they don't have to make the decision with the black or a person of color candidate. So how does that play? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Exactly. And I think Brian Flores, according to his accusation, experienced that with the New York Giants in particular, that it was a sham, that it was they were doing their deal, they were doing their duty, they were filling all the X's and the check marks in for all the things they needed to check. They interviewed a black coach, even though they knew flat out they were going to hire that black coach, because they already made up their mind to hire another coach. So at what point do you say, well, then this is a sham, this is a joke? We should not be of that kind. We should. I think what it is too is, Farajii, I don't think anybody trusts anybody.
No.
So I think that's a big issue. I don't think anybody trusts anybody, and I think the NFL better stand up and answer these questions and dig for the truth. Yeah. Figure it out. Don't try and let the legal system get you out of this and then, wave the white flag and go, we're all good, right? Everybody's good. All right, let's move on. No, let's let the legal system do its work. But in the meantime, let's do our work. Let's do our due diligence. Let's stand up. Let's do something that's significant. I thought, for example, you mentioned the helmets, stop racism.
Right.
That's a big move for the NFL. That's a big move.
Right.
How many times have we seen players get fined for, wearing socks that weren't, the right sock to wear on the field?
Right.
How many times have we seen that happen? And for them to have, relinquished that power that, the NFL has the stronghold over everybody and everything. And it's going to be interesting to see this week how this plays out with the Super Bowl. This is the NFL's biggest stage. Take any stage that any great entertainer has played on and then multiply it, a gazillion times. Everybody is going to be watching this. So how does the league handle it? How do the reporters handle it? How do the players handle it? And you can bet that every PR director, the PR directors in both the Cincinnati Bengals and the LA Rams, are having long conversations with the head coaches and the players as to how to handle this. Because this is,
and you know what, to add to that list, Tony, the fact that you have a number of fans, those fans who haven't forgotten Kaepernick, those fans who said, okay, Kaepernick is one thing. I'm gonna still keep watching. It's going to be interesting to see how the response of people, if that's going to drum up the same level of attention and momentum that we saw with the Colin Kaepernick situation. Is it going to be here? Because this right here, Kaepernick, I definitely thought was a big situation, but I feel like this is a huge blow to the foundation of the NFL, because now you have to, there's a lawsuit. There is a hiring practice that has been in place for so many years. It has kept black coaches out. I mean, this goes down to, I believe, down to the very essence of how the NFL operates. What we saw with Kaepernick, it seemed to be something like it took them in uncharted waters. This is right in their home. This is right there in their pool. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the fans and many others move forward with this situation. Tony, I thank you so much.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you, Farajii. I am honored to have been with you today.
Absolutely. We certainly got to bring you back to give us any latest updates.
Would love to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Tony Segreto, retired Miami sports journalist, checking in as we talked about the case and the lawsuit of former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Mr. Brian Flores. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about the latest developments with the HBCU bomb threats that has rocked the HBCU national community. We'll have that discussion. Stay with us. It's The Culture on Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
Folks, we have been hearing about the unreal circumstances of bomb threats that have affected about a dozen HBCUs across the country. Today, it was just announced just a couple of hours ago that 6 tech-savvy juveniles are persons of interest in this case. The FBI has been involved in the matter, and they're looking to see how these juveniles were able to connect. Now, again, these are only persons of interest. There hasn't been any charges made, but these juveniles have created a network, apparently, where they have communicated with one another, and most importantly, they have created a system where their sources of these threats will be unknown. Now, the FBI says that these threats were made out of a space of being racially motivated, and they said that all these juveniles who are suspected of making the threats appear to be tech savvy, using sophisticated methods to try to disguise the source of the threat, and they have they're still, of course, it's still investigating. Now, some of the schools that have been affected by this bomb threat, in addition to Howard University was the first school. There has been the University of the District of Columbia in DC, Morgan State University in Coppin State here in Baltimore, Fort Valley State in Fort Valley, Georgia, Kentucky State University, Xavier University of Louisiana, Edward Waters University in Jacksonville, Alcorn State University in Lorman, Mississippi, Mississippi Valley State University, Mississippi in Itta-Bena, Mississippi, Rust College in Holly Springs, Mississippi, Spelman College in Atlanta, Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi, and Tougaloo College in Tougaloo, Mississippi, all reported bomb threats yesterday, but they had finally issued an all clear order yesterday as well. I want to bring in my culture crew member, Elijah Miles, who is an alumni of Morgan State University. Elijah, to hear that there are 6 juveniles possibly behind this situation, racially motivated, that will impact HBCUs. I mean, I'm just like, juveniles? What? What's your take on the matter?
Well, first we have to do everything we possibly can to protect HBCUs. It makes me think back to the history of HBCUs. And so here you have a people that come right out of one of the worst parts in history, the history of humanity, slavery. And the first thing that they do is set up universities and colleges to educate their people, and have been educating their people since right after slavery. So like my school, Morgan State University, the illustrious, made in 1867. And so when I hear that there's bomb threat to HBCUs all across the country, it's saddening, it's anger, it makes me angry, but I still have faith and hope that HBCUs have overcome so much in these past couple hundred years that will stay strong. As President David Wilson has said, we'll stay strong and we'll overcome this as well.
I mean, it seems like when you hear bomb threats, when you hear something on this type of level, and again, I'm going back to the fact that this is juveniles, this is young people. Now, it's like out of all the people you would expect to commit this type of crime, the fact that it's young people though, and that they're racially motivated. So what comes to my mind, Elijah, is that we're not as far as we think we are when it comes to race relations in this country, when the babies are starting to commit terrorist acts.
And it's a question of how the babies are being raised in families, but also within schools, within communities, within churches. And so this type of racism is being passed down generation to generation. And so as we begin to talk about education deeper within the conversation later in this show, it is a question of how are people being raised behind closed doors, because segregation and even slavery, it wasn't that long ago. It was just yesterday that the 4 little girls and I believe in Birmingham were bombed at church. So this all is just yesterday, and it's going to take a lot more time for this country to adjust to Black people being on equal footing.
Yeah. And you know what I think also, Elijah, is that it's going to take a lot more time for us to accept that reality that racism in America is still alive and well. So that's the big part of I think that's one of the big lessons that we can glean from that situation. Folks, Stay tuned. We got to take another pause. When we come back, speaking of racism and speak of adjusting to a new reality, we want to have a conversation that you may not have known has been raging, which is about the banning of books. We're going to be checking in with Tatanisha Love to give us some insight about why there is such an upset or anger around certain books in the classroom, a part of the curriculum, and what implications, what is the impact of not reading certain books that come out of certain periods of American history. So we're going to have that conversation in the next hour, along with trends, post, and doing the most. So stay with us. We got a lot to get to. Culture crew member Elijah Miles will be joined by another culture crew member, Farajii Muhammad, and a whole lot more. So stay riding with us. It's The Culture on Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome to the show, folks. We want to have this now. We want to shift gears to a conversation about books. It seems to be a real problem in post-Trump, post-Obama America for us to talk about race, for us to even think about race, for us to even read about race. And this is the drama that is ensuing right now as we speak, as there is a movement around the country to ban books. And I mean, not just any type of books. I'm talking about books that were once lauded as being masterpieces, books that was once seen as being groundbreaking pieces of literature. I'm talking about books like I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by the late, great Dr. Maya Angelou. How a book like that can be on the banned book list, along with other books, such as Of Mice and Men, Uncle Tom's Cabin, Huckleberry Finn, and so many other books. We're going to be joined now by a librarian, and she's a member of the Black Caucus of American Libraries, Miss Tatanisha Love, to give us some insight as to what we're seeing with this latest trend of banning books, of even talking about them, including them into the curriculum. Hell, even having them on the shelf in certain spaces is just a no-no. Are we setting ourselves up? Are we setting up the next generation for failure when they can't read the books that truly represent America? Tatanisha, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the conversation, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about this. You are a librarian.
Mm-hmm.
You are a Black woman. You read books.
Yes.
You read all kinds of books.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So why is this such a problem where we can't have a conversation, or young people can't, or children can't even read certain books? Why is this such a problem? I mean, it hasn't been a problem before, but it seems like within the last 2-3 years, it's a problem now.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
And real quick, I was thinking about, because we spoke earlier, I was thinking about the fact that in the past there were issues with groups trying to ban books in schools and public libraries, school libraries, etc. So it has happened before, but the big thing about what's going on now is that there's a big push, it seems, especially if you look at the list of books that have been proposed to be banned from the school libraries in Texas. The majority of the books either have characters of color, or they're by authors who are minorities, Black, Asian, Hispanic. And it seems as though the push for the majority of books that are being asked to be banned from the school libraries tend to be books that some people and groups find to be a problem for them and their information that they want to share with their children at home. So that's one thing that's going on. And a lot of times when books are being banned, or there's a push to ban books, there's always a change that's happening in society. And so whether there's a group of people or groups of people that don't like to see the change that's happening in society, then they want to push to have certain books that don't have the themes and the messages and the characters and the authors that they feel should be in their homes or in the hands of their children. They want to make sure that no other children have those books. So it's quite a bit that goes on with it, unfortunately, but it has happened before. And right now, a lot of librarians and supporters and students actually are making sure that hopefully that this does not continue to succeed in different states.
I have to say that we're either in Germany or we're in some other time period where, I mean, of course, what we saw in Nazi Germany, that they banned, they took certain books and they threw them in a pile and burned them up. And I'm thinking to myself, are we at that place in America? Like we really are. It really seems to be a hard thing for America, and I'm saying that as a collective, for us to confront something. We can't even confront something that has happened 100 years ago. And so, but then there's this message, this narrative that says, oh, we can't confront 100 years ago, but we're going to solve your problems now. And it's like, how does that happen? You can't even simply acknowledge that maybe that there was racism 100 years ago, that maybe certain authors were racist, and I'm wondering, why is that such an issue?
I was asking a colleague of mine about that today, because I wanted, and so first off, the colleague that I have, because he made sure that he stated that this was not of his opinion or anything, that he was trying to think of in the mindset of the parents and the caregivers and the groups and organizations that are against certain books. And a lot of, for some people, it's a fear of what they're being told is inside the books, because it seems as though when you ask some people about the books that they're considering to ban, they haven't read the books themselves. It's just what their friend or someone else.
Hold on. I want you to go back and say that. the books that they are trying to ban, and I think you're absolutely right, which I think is absolutely crazy, that you're trying to ban books that you haven't even read. You're trying to ban books that you don't even know the intention of the author to trying to bring these stories. But you just say, oh, like Dr. Seuss. Who would have thought that Dr. Seuss was a racist? Right? I mean, because we've all been fed Dr. Seuss nursery rhymes and books and all of those things. And Dr. Seuss, one of his most famous, well, I'm not going to say most famous, but one of his famous books and works is about, moving on to the next level. I forgot the book, and, talking about how we move forward in life. But all of these things, you would never expect that Dr. Seuss had that type of personal politics. So it's interesting that people are still operating from a space of ignorance. Thank you. All the places you'll go. It's just absolutely insane that you're making these broad decisions without really diving deep into understanding the text that you say is dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Well, and I was just going to say, and it from what I've seen in the pockets of different areas and different states where this is happening, the groups are getting, blurbs and parts of books to read in front of school boards and say, this shouldn't be in front or in the school shelf, or this shouldn't be there. And they're taking them out of context. They're just reading one part. Some of the books that they're talking about, there was even an issue where they might have an author mixed up because there might be two authors with the same name. So then they're talking about a book that's not even on the library shelf, but it's another book by an author with the same name. Right. So the big thing is that people have to make sure they look at what's being in, certainly see what's in your school libraries and have a conversation with the school librarians to talk about the collections that are being there. And then definitely keep in mind that school librarians, when we look at the books that we're putting in the shelves, we're looking at reviews. They have to have positive reviews. We're looking at the age level that's recommended. And we're also considering whether or not students have requested them, or the teachers, and then the age level and the appropriateness, and et cetera. So it's not just a whim where school librarians are picking books because the covers are pretty and putting them on the school library shelves. That just doesn't happen.
I mean, and for those who may not know it, but there is you have to get a degree. There is a degree that you can get in college called library science. There is a science behind working in a library or being a librarian. Before we take our next pause, I want to bring in Culture Crew member Farajii Muhammad, who is an author herself. She's a writer. She's also an educator, and she is also my wife. So, Nira, thank you so much for joining us once again. Nira, I know first and foremost, people really don't know, and I'm going to just put it out there, you own a lot of damn books. You are a book lover. About 2,000 books.
Right, about 2,000.
About 2,000 books. But as a teacher, as a book lover, what's your initial take on this effort to ban certain books? And and just looking behind you, you have some of the banned books right on your shelf there.
I do. First of all, I have the entire Harry Potter collection. So, that's on the banned book list, Harry Potter. My kids and I are obsessed with Harry Potter. So let me just say, I wasn't allowed to read Harry Potter as a child, though. I can admit I was not allowed to read Harry Potter as a child. I was told that it was witchcraft. And I, as an adult now, feel like a part of my childhood was stolen. I do. I feel like a part of my childhood was stolen because I was not allowed to watch or read Harry Potter books. But to speak to how I feel about this, I have a quote that literally pretty much just sums up everything. It says, because books can be dangerous, but it says, but those who seek to ban books are wrong no matter how dangerous books can be. Books are inseparable from ideas, and this is really what is at stake. The struggle over what a child, a reader, and a society are allowed to think, to know, and to question. A book can open doors and show the possibility of new experiences, even new identities and futures. That is what is at stake. What we are allowed to think, what we are allowed to know, and what we are allowed to question. That is the big problem.
That's a huge problem. That's a great quote. Great. Who gave that quote?
So I cut off the part that gave the quote, but it's from an article from CNN. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm always like screenshotting and like cutting things. But it is from CNN. It's from an article about banned books. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. It's a great quote. We're going to just say an unknown proverb.
I'm going to try to uncrop my picture so that I can get it back.
Right. But that's a great quote, and I think that's one of the big things, Tatanisha, that I think that we need to really consider is the fact that you're talking about really, diminishing a view that can help raise a child, to empower a child. And I want you to talk. We got to take a quick pause, but when we come back, I want you to speak to that issue. That some of these books might come out of the minds of racist individuals or people who didn't think Black people, didn't think much of Black people. But there is still a reason why we need to read their works. And I want you to speak to that issue. Also, when we come back, we're going to be joined by our other culture crew member, Elijah Miles, and so many more. Folks, I want you to put your thoughts in our YouTube and our Facebook chat. That way we can hear what you have to say about this larger issue of book banning in America. So stay with us. A whole lot is coming up here on The Culture on Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A Black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Roland was amazing on there.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, we've been talking about the issue of banning books in America, a movement that has taken libraries and schools, parents and teachers, and students by storm. We're seeing that in parts of the country, in some parts more than others, that book censorship is on the rise. According to the tracking from the American Library Association, there were nearly as many challenges, which is the ALA's term for requests to remove books, between the time of September 1st and December 1st, 2021, as it normally tracks in an entire year. I'm going to say that for you again. There were more requests to ban books within a 3-month period of 2021 than it was an entire year, according to the American Library Association. What is happening in this country? We're joined by Tatanisha Love, who is a member of the Black Caucus of Librarians. We're joined by Culture Crew member. She's a writer. She's an author, Nia Muhammad. And we're also joined by Culture Crew member Elijah Miles, who serves as the community organizer and founder of Tendea Family. What is going on? Tatanisha, before we get to our crew, I wanted to get your take on the ideas that Nia brought to the table, which was the fact that, you know, you ban books, you pretty much are stunting the growth of an individual, of a child. You are making their world smaller. Why is it important for us to keep books on the shelves, even though those books may not be consistent with our values and our beliefs about ourselves?
And the reason is because, and I think back to when I was a child starting to read, we want students to be able to have windows, mirrors, and doors, and that's a phrase that we use in the library world is windows, mirrors, and doors to see other cultures that are different from themselves, other experiences that might be different from theirs. Because when you think about the fact that we're in a global society, by having students, young people, be able to see and connect with, oh, I can see that that person might be different from me, but we do have some similarities. That helps to open up a dialogue. And so the big thing about going into the 21st century, or actually moving into the 22nd with a global society, we want there to be a dialogue and for more people to connect and see that there's similarities and differences, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, Elijah, people are afraid of these books. I mean, one of the big reasons, and we got to say it like this, folks, and I'm gonna just let you know that a lot of these censures are happening in places that are Republican controlled, right? They are happening in those states like Texas and other southern states across the country where they don't feel comfortable. A number of Republican controlled legislatures are allowing these books to be censored. And they're pulling these books because they don't want to deal with the issue of looking at America's dirty, hard, corrupt, racist past. And conservative activists are even asking to pull these books because they don't want to deal with issues of sexuality, race, and gender. Elijah, talk to us, like, what's your take on that?
What was deep is I've read articles, a bunch of articles on this, and what I found is that the right and left are both arguing about this, and they are both for censoring some books. It's just what books they for censoring. I think what this really is about a control over the culture and about a control over what kids will be, because I think the battleground for what America will be in 100 years, the battleground for what our kids will be, what ideas they'll have, what values be placed in them, that battleground is being fought in the classroom. And that's why you have the debates about critical race theory and the debates about the book banning, is because I think the deeper issue is really about what do we want our kids to be, and what ideas do we want to shape them as human beings, because education is extremely important. Books change so many of people's lives, changed my life. And if you allow certain books, I think this is part of what people's concern is, if you allow certain books taught in the wrong context to shape these children's minds, then you can very well make a racist in the classroom. On the other side, you can make a person like Malcolm X, you can make a person like Marcus Garvey, you can make a person that books do this opposite effect to. So I think it is a question of culture. And real quick, I would say that I think the question that we as Black people have to ask ourselves, while the right and the left is both debating about book banners and all that, the question we have to ask ourselves is whether it's a right-controlled school district or a left-controlled school district. Is the education we receiving currently solving the issues of Black people and the issues that the Black community faces? Because even in Baltimore City or in Black neighborhoods within Black districts, I don't think the education we're receiving, whether we read in Uncle Tom's Cabin or reading Maya Angelou, I don't think the education we receive is solving the issues that we face day to day in our problems. So it's a real higher question about education and the purpose of education and how we can use that as a tool for liberation for Black people everywhere.
Let me just share with you just a couple of what folks are saying in our chat. James checked in and said, "You want doctors or soldiers? Take away your choice. No books, more soldiers. I see them from a mile away." Thank you so much, James. And people are saying, some folks are saying, well, at this point, what's left? If we can't even read about the history, Nira, of how this country is, or what has been generated as a result of this racist history of the dark history of America, how we're going to ever deal with it?
Well, that's the thing. It's being swept under the rug. But I have to say, all these banned books are not just about racism. I mean, A Wrinkle in Time is on there. We have even The Handmaid's Tale, which is about women's rights. It's about our bodies. There's so many books in here. The Lord of the Rings, Bridge to Terabithia. Like, there are books that are about creativity. They're imaginative. They're about creating new worlds. So, I mean, we're really taking away critical thinking skills and our creativity. And even 13 Reasons Why is on there. So again, this is not just a black or a black thing. This is about real topics, real issues that are happening with our young people. If you take away 13 Reasons Why, the book, are you going to then ban the show? But there's so much that can be learned from 13 Reasons Why. There's so many discussions that need to be had and can be had from that book. So what are we saying to our children? What are we saying to adults? Are we saying, no, we want to create baby robots. We want everyone to think and act exactly the same. And to me, that's what I'm seeing happening with society.
I want to share with you what they consider to be this banned book list. Because, and I mean, these seems to be books that, Tatanisha, that I think everybody has probably even heard of or read. A Wrinkle in Time, The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. That's a classic. The Handmaid's Tale, classic. Catcher in the Rye, classic. Of Mice and Men, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Forever. The Kite Runner, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Giver, The Outsider, 13 Reasons Why, as Nira said, Harry Potter, George, The Hate You Give. That book just came out. And it's like, you already, like, I would hate to be the author. You're just like, hey, I got a new book that's been banned. Like what the heck is happening? The Grapes of Wrath, The Color Purple, The Lord of the Flies, 1984, Song of Solomon, The Call of the Wild, The Lord of the Rings, Bridge to Terabithia, and I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Tatanisha, I want to get your, now that we are in this place, give us some insight as to how important libraries are in this. Because if the children can't get these books in the schools and parents aren't exposing their children to these books or to this type of literature, it seems like the last bastion of literature becomes the library system. Am I correct or no?
Well, yes, I will say that you're correct, and not just because I'm a school librarian. And one thing to keep in mind is that there are a number of students that the only place where they're able to get a book is if they go to their school library, whether the parents aren't able to or don't take them to Barnes and Noble, they don't have the means to purchase the books for them to have in their homes, or taking them to the public library. Whatever it is, the school library is where the students are able to get the books so they can read for entertainment, enjoyment, or knowledge. And I did real quick put a quote in there from Frederick Douglass: once you learn to read, you will be forever free. And the big thing about books is that it gives students a chance to not only, like I mentioned earlier, meet characters that might be different from themselves or experiences, but when you have such as Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, which if other people haven't read it, you might want to consider reading it. It talks about what was going on before the civil rights era really started for a young lady, Cassie Logan, and her family, and their experiences as Blacks in a Southern town. And it reflects a lot of the experiences that people had during that time, and that's why it's such a groundbreaking book. And so that's why it's important for students to be able to read books about the past and things that happen with characters, as well as, fantasies and other things that can take them to other solar systems and that type of thing, so that they can expand their minds and expand their thoughts and have that discussion, have that creativity, like we were just hearing a moment ago, because creativity is key and is very important for our students and the young people that are growing up today to have that dialogue.
So, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we're also seeing in the midst of all of this, banning books, there are students across the country who have created what they call banned book clubs. And these book clubs are designed to read those books, to find those books, to discuss those books that are on this list and others. But essentially, this is like their act of rebellion. And I can't help but to think about the fact that, it's like the civil rights movement. It's a non-violent exercise, right, to try to right some wrong. In your opinion, Tatanisha, is this the best way that young people can go? This is the best way that communities can go, where they, say, what, instead of banning these books, we're going to talk about them in our homes or in the churches or in the library system. Is this the way that we need to go?
I truly believe that discussion is key and is very important, because the more people that have discussions about the books, the themes, the messages, the more that we can influence positive change in society. And we can all certainly look at the news and hear about things that are going on in today's society and see that we need some positive change to occur. And if people are about positive change, then they should be about positive discussions. And so that does mean that we need to encourage our students and the school communities to read books and have these discussions.
Mira, what's your take on that?
I think it's very important. I was really getting excited. So that is the Joshua generation. That is what that means. To take ownership of your own education. I think that's very beautiful. I mean, personally, I had a 5th grader who read The Hate That You Give, and she absolutely loved that book. And I got permission from her parents to allow her to read that book, but she really, really wanted to. But these things are happening. We can sit and we can pretend like our kids don't know what's going on in the world when they do. They are more exposed to crap on YouTube and on TV. So why are we now banning books? Why are we banning some of the things that they see on television? So to combat all of the influences that are out there in media, books are so important. I'm a lover of books. I couldn't imagine my childhood without books. Books were my escape. Books are how I learn. Books are why I'm a writer now, because it's the stories.
Yeah.
And whether it's historical fiction, I'm also a huge follower of Carter G. Woodson. We are, without history, we're like a tree without roots. What are we here for? History, we can't build a foundation without history. History is our foundation. Yeah. So to take that away, it's just like we're living in a world where we're just creating. We might as well just be in a metaverse. I'm just gonna say that.
You said you might as well just be in a metaverse, huh?
Nothing's real anymore.
Elijah, what's your take on this? If we start establishing banned book clubs, this is a silent rebellion, is it not?
It's definitely a silent rebellion. But I'm not trying to be the harbinger of bad news. What I'm saying is the culture wars that are happening, because things are shifting, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to stop. I think it's going to get a whole lot harder. And I'm trying to, in my opinion, I think Black people and Black communities have to think about their position and how they're going to be affected by these culture wars that are happening in the classrooms. Because even when I was teaching at a Catholic high school, the culture wars are not just with policymakers and stuff. The culture wars is in the faculty rooms about what should the English teacher be teaching and what should the history teacher be teaching. So I think we have to really consider how our kids, Black kids, will be affected by this, and what classic books do we want to make sure that's in the classroom, like Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro, that I had to read outside the classroom. The autobiography of Malcolm X I had to read outside the classroom. Man, Child in the Promised Land, outside the classroom. Makes Me Want to Holler, Nathan McCall, outside the classroom. Native Son, Black Boy, all these books I had to read outside the classroom. And I think we have to start pushing the envelope within this and say, yo, let's make sure these Black books are inside the classroom and my kid grow up reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, one of the greatest men of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Can I like jump on what he
Absolutely.
said? I love when he mentioned the debate in the faculty room, because as a teacher, that was one of my issues. The first year that I taught, I absolutely hated the books that I was told to read with my students. My students hated the books. And the next year I told her, we're not reading those books. And I chose the books. We read, and I taught 5th grade, One Crazy Summer, which is about 3 Black girls growing up during the, who go visit their mother in Oakland, California during the Black Panther Party movement. My students were so invested, they could not wait to read. Another book that we read was Ghost Boys, which is about, it's very, very similar to Tamir Rice's story. My students, white and Black, when I said, take out your Ghost Boys, were like, yay! They were excited to read. This book was a hard read. We were reading about a little boy who was 12 years old that was shot and killed and trying to figure out why it happened. But my students loved it, and we were able to have real conversation about it. So we have to stop pretending that our children are not critical thinkers, like they are not comprehensive, when they are. They want to read stories that impact their lives. They want to read stories that matter to them, that mean something to who they are, what's going on now. This is so relevant. This is as relevant as, hell, this is more relevant than of Mice and Men, if you ask me.
And it leads to a couple of questions, Tanisha, where we're talking about, I mean, Elijah and Nira both had talked about the power and the role of the teacher, where teachers are making these decisions. How does the library system assist in that decision making, or can the library system assist in that decision making, whether locally or nationally, to ensure that these books are part of the curriculum?
One thing about different school systems is that there has been quite a movement to make sure that there's books that reflect different cultures and outlooks and experiences. And so the role of the librarian is to make sure that we have books that are diverse in our collection. That's one thing that we've been talking about for the past almost 10 years, I believe, diverse collections. So we look at the representation, of races, cultures, LGBTQIA plus issues, whether or not there's a student or a character that has to deal with the depression or emotional learning type of things. And then if the teacher brings the student in, they have books where they're able to choose books that they're interested in reading, and then go from there. But then also with the curriculum, whether there's ties to the messages that are in those books that they're reading, what have you, we work with the teachers and the students, and then also with any other community groups that want to work with the students that way with reading.
So there is an opportunity.
Yes.
And are you finding, because I know in terms of the work of the Black Caucus of librarians, you know, is the Black Caucus saying, hey, you know what, we need to push the matter, or, you know, advocating for that? Because it sounds like, especially in some of these southern states, and, you know, Texas seems to be taking the lead on this, it sounds like there needs to be not just the voices of teachers and the voices of students, but there needs to be national advocates behind this movement and this measure.
A lot of the library organizations are working together to make sure that we work on the state level as well as the national level to hopefully lessen or curtail the movement for banning these books. And because we realize that once the more books that are being banned in different pockets of society, the more it's going to increase in other areas because it sets a precedent. So we are working together to make sure that we're unified in our messaging, to make sure that we can get the information out to others, parents, supporters, anyone, to talk about banning books and the fact that they should not be banned.
And one of the other things about that, Elijah, is the simple fact that, you know, if parents don't know, and you work with a lot of young people with Tendea Family, but you know, reaching out to the parents to get them to see, like, this is important. This is not just about keeping your child in school, but this is about an ongoing educational experience that the child takes from school back to home, then go out into the community, and it creates a different dynamic. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's extremely important because it was conversations. Some of my favorite books, it was conversations in the past about banning the books. One of my favorite books is up here somewhere.
Yeah, man, you got like 1,000 books up there, brother.
It was trying to read one. But the spook that sat by the door was conversations about banning the spook that sat by the door, which imagines a revolution in the Black community around police brutality. And so there do need to be conversations about maintaining our rights to read any book, or else quoting another book, we end up in a 1984 George Orwell type of world where thought is a crime and you're not allowed to think and critically think and examine things. I want to read The White Man's Burden. I want to read Uncle Tom's Cabin with the little boy Jim Crow. I want to read all of that things so I can critically examine it all. So we have to keep the right to read any book you please open. And then we also have to think about, in my opinion, what Black people are going to do about the culture war that's happening in the classroom and will affect our kids, and how we can make sure that we are represented in the curriculum that's being created and the core education that we're affected by. So it's important.
Absolutely. And you know what, Nira, when we talk about that culture war, one thing that the big thing that keeps coming back to my mind, that this is the perfect opportunity for Black writers to write, that this is the perfect period of American time or American history to see the brilliance of Black literature. You know, you are a writer. You have written everything from stories to poems and all of those things. You know, now I would think that this is a golden opportunity. This is the prime time to start seeing more stories of Black people, of brown people, of people who have been oppressed. We start to hear more stories of triumph. We start to see a different level of history that's being told. This is the time for new writers, is it not?
Yeah, it definitely is. I will say that, as you know, getting into publishing, it's tricky, it's hard, and we as Black writers, we're underrepresented even in the publishing world. Looking for literary agents, Black agents, we're underrepresented. So it's really hard. We have to break so many barriers. There's so many barriers that need to be broken. But it was interesting because as Elijah was speaking, in my mind, I was just like, this needs to be a part of the First Amendment. Like, we need protection over our right to be able to read what we want to read. This entire conversation is just so scary to me, because I feel like our civil liberties are slowly but surely being taken away, and it's happening so subtly and so at such a small, pace that people aren't paying attention. So the fact that they're telling us what we can read, what we can think. I mean, is that not scary?
No, it's beyond scary. It's beyond scary, and I think that's why we need to have these conversations, Tatanisha. I think that's really why it was important for me to say, okay, no, we need to discuss this, because it is that scary that now we're coming into quote unquote modern day America in 2022, and we're having conversations about banning books, when most people, and I know, the old saying is, if you ever want to hide anything from a Black person, that you put it in a book. But I don't think that applies just for Black people anymore. Most people, we are in an age of 140 characters. We're in an age of show me, that we're not cracking open some old book. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not cracking open James Baldwin. We're not cracking open Maya Angelou or Dick Gregory, or we're not opening these books. We are scrolling.
Farajii, it just made me think, nowadays our kids just want to read. They just want to read Dog Man, and I'm not crapping on Dog Man. I love that stuff. I love graphic novels, and I am the type, like, I will try to get kids invested. I don't care what you want to read. If I have to go buy a ton of graphic novels, a ton of books with basketball characters in it, whatever I can do to get my students invested in reading, I am going to do. That's what I did as an educator. My role was to get students on reading level, grade level. I had some students come to me at the beginning of the year, 5 levels below reading level. By the end of the year, they were on or above reading level. That's how serious I take books in my classroom. That's how serious books are. Reading is, oh my gosh, Farajii, I could talk about this all day.
I know you can.
I really can.
I mean, you own 2,000 books. So.
I love reading. I love what reading does to children's confidence, even in their writing. I've seen it. I've fostered it. And the thought of taking these books away just breaks my heart. It kills me.
Tatanisha, as we wrap up this conversation, what would you advise parents and teachers and community folks that are watching today's show? What would you advise them to do? What would you advise, either in support of the library system, who stand against book banning, but then also in support of making sure that our children, Black children, have a global education about who they are and the world that they're walking into? what would you advise at this point?
I definitely advise them to definitely go to their school board meetings and talk about the need for the books to be in the schools and for the students to be able to read these books, to have that choice and that voice. And the other reason why I say that is because the more times that we have parents coming in front of the school boards and making sure they contact their legislative bodies as well, it'll increase the chance for their voices to be heard, as well as the wants and needs of their children, because a lot of times it's only a certain group of people that are going to the boards where they're saying, hey, give us this and get rid of these books, and they're the ones being heard. So they got to take part in that dialogue, and then also work with the school librarian to make sure that that dialogue is being had with the students so they can talk about the books that they want to see in the school library.
Wow, that's powerful, and I'm so happy that we can at least have the conversation. Tatanisha Love, who's a member of the Black Caucus of Librarians, we truly appreciate your time today, and we thank you for your insight about this larger movement to ban books in America. Thank you so much, Tatanisha.
Thank you.
Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, trends, post, and doing the most with the Culture Crew. Stay with us. It's The Culture on Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, it's now time for our new segment, Trends, Post, and Doing the Most. Now, in this segment, folks, we often talk about things that are trending, things that people are talking about. You know what I mean? This is Nira's one of her favorite segments because we talk about those trending topics. But if you did not know, today is National Girls and Women in Sports Day. I want to bring Elijah and Nira Muhammad into it because this is interesting. Like, first and foremost, culture crew. It seems like every day is something else, right? It seems like there's always a day for something. But National Girls and Women in Sports Day. Today is that day where we celebrate women in sports. Now, the first conversation we had was about Brian Flores in the NFL. Now we're celebrating women in baseball, football, in all sports. Nira, I want to get your take on this National Girls and Women in Sports Day. It seems like we've come a long way from acknowledging that women have athleticism. Would you say?
I would say that I did not know that was today, but I'm also not athletic. So that's amazing. I'm always happy but I'm always happy to check in with the ladies and see the amazing things that they're doing with their athleticism. Maybe they could throw some of that energy over here because I am, not athletic at all.
Wait a minute, hold on. So you never, as a child, as a little girl, you never went to play basketball, football, softball. Well, they probably not football, but like basketball, softball, volleyball. That just wasn't your thing.
I broke a nail doing basketball in gym and I stopped the game. I was like, ah! They were like, what's wrong? I'm like, I just broke a nail. She was like, go sit down. She's like, go have a seat. I wore Converses to gym class so that someone could run for me doing baseball. I would bet, but I'm not running. So that's how I feel about exercise.
Yeah, but did you at least hit the ball?
I did. It's not that I'm bad at sports, but I would much rather be someone with a paintbrush or a book.
Right. Elijah, National Girls and Women's in Sports Day. Did you know that this day even existed?
No, I didn't know it existed, and I definitely didn't know it the day was the day. But yeah, I think that's great. Women, girls, do whatever.
Okay.
Elijah, you had a lot of women before you until that answer, sir. Until that women, girls, they do stuff.
I can't play no ball. It was definitely some girls in high school that could whoop me in basketball.
Oh, really?
That's why I ended up doing what I'm doing because NBA wasn't NFL and NBA wasn't an option for me. So.
Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. I was good at badminton.
Is badminton?
Yeah, I was good at
You talking about with the little birdie and the rackets?
We had to play that in high school.
Oh, okay. Okay. Was there like a league for badminton?
No, it was in gym class. That's as far as I go.
Oh, okay.
As far as I go. I don't do organized group work. I don't do organized group projects.
Yeah, we played that in gym class too. Yeah.
You played badminton in gym class.
Thank you, Elijah. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I might be showing my age right now. We didn't play that in gym class when I was growing up. I'm sorry. We just didn't play badminton. We had like volleyball, of course, basketball.
I did that.
But we didn't have like some of the and it actually in with all due seriousness, it acts I'm glad that this day is being celebrated just because some people still believe that women should not get involved in sports, that women don't have the athleticism to run up and down a field or to do those things. And it's like, are you crazy? Like what century are you living in that you believe that women should not be involved in sports? Elijah?
Nah, women should definitely be involved in sports. I have a cousin that's just got a really big lacrosse scholarship for some big school. And I played lacrosse, but I'm not nearly as good as she is. She's something else. My little cousin. But yeah, I think women should definitely be involved in sports. You learn a bunch about teamwork. I learned a bunch about order and how to collaborate to get to a objective? And do you also learn how to take opposition and learn how to lose and take it like a good sport? There's so many things you learn from sports, and that I learned from sports, even though I was never that good.
Yeah.
That's what I learned, Elijah, that I wasn't that good. That's what I learned.
That's what you learned. That just wasn't your thing.
I went to an all-girls school for high school too. So, I mean, the thought of, girls don't play sports is like, well, there's only girls here. I wish that they told us that because I would have been happy. That was my homeroom class. I had to take it at 8 o'clock in the morning. Like, I wish girls didn't have to play sports at that time.
Right.
Dang.
Well, it happens. I'm glad it's happening. I think that more girls should get involved in sports and show up more boys like Elijah. That way that your people get Elijah, my God. So,
Elijah, he coming for you, bro.
That's all good. It's all good. It's all good. All right. So also that's trending on a more serious side of things. Police have arrested a number of men in the death of Michael K. Williams, who lost his life back on September 5th because of a drug overdose. Now, if you don't know, Michael K. Williams was a very, very, he was a top-notch actor. Most people know him as Omar from The Wire. And now, they've finally made some headway on the investigation into his death. He died in New York City. But it's such an unfortunate story that a man of such great caliber and talent loses his life that way. And, you're happy that they find the person that behind it, but more, it just doesn't take away the pain that a great, great talent, a great light has been lost on this. Go ahead, Nira.
I would have to completely agree. I mean, anytime you lose someone to substance abuse, it's very, very hard. I lost my father to an overdose back in 2016 to substance abuse. And so I know how hard that is. So all I can say is that I send the warmest and sincerest love to his family and his loved ones, and I'm praying for them. And that's about as much as I want to say because it's such a sensitive topic for me. Yeah. But for sure, like, keep them in your prayers, keep your judgments to yourself. We don't know what people are battling with. So yeah, that's about it. Just be very respectful and tread very lightly because this is a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. This is a big issue in America. Opioids, drugs. It's a big, big, big issue here.
No doubt. No doubt. All right. And the final thing that we can slide in here for today's Trends Post and Doing the Most, the fact that, it's been like a sports day. First, the Washington football team finally has come up with their new name. I don't know, Elijah, if you keep up with this, but they've now called this, after 2 seasons of being called the Washington football team, they're now going to be called the Washington Commanders. I don't know how to feel about this name.
What's the logo looking like?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Like, are they going to look like the Patriots? I mean, like, what are we doing here?
I don't know. But the Washington Commanders, it's
Are they going to be a better team, though?
Huh?
Are they going to be a better team? Because, if you're a Washington fan, you shouldn't even like the sport. That's what I'm just going to put it out
there. I thought everybody was going to be disappointed regardless because they took so long to come up with a name and they did so much work to come up with a name that I don't know if a name could have been good enough.
Sure.
But the old name definitely had to change. It just had to go. But yeah, I'm with Nira that they got to be better.
It's got to be better. Here's
we don't care about your name. Just play better football.
Well, here's the irony. Like, people were so hard about Washington Redskins, but the Kansas City Chiefs still have their name. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's really about.
I will say I want to say that there's a difference in the Redskin and Chief because Redskins was, if you look at the history of that term, what that meant, that was not about the color of their skin. That was actually about peeling their skin back. So there's a difference. Now when you have to go into the history of it, that's why there's a difference.
That's true. So, I just feel a certain way when
it's a derogatory term. Calling someone a Redskin is like a derogatory term. It's like
no doubt. But I still feel a certain way. I don't think that any team should be named after any group of people that are still alive or any culture that is, it's just still
including the Patriots though, because the Patriots is like representative of America.
I get it, but they're from Boston, so it's like Patriots, Boston Tea Party, the quote unquote birthplace of America and all of those things. I get it, but Kansas City Chiefs and another place, it still reeks of cultural appropriation.
Yeah,
I didn't get that vibe, but you could be right.
I agree with Farajii on this, that I think that it's just like you oppress a group of people, crush them, take their land, and then you turn them into a mascot. It just feels different when it's Chiefs or Redskins than the Patriots, because the Patriots it does represent the country in some way and the American ideals. But I didn't think about
the Chiefs then represent the country too, because they are part. I just feel like it's such a, I don't know, like it's one of those topics that it's just like we don't. Why is everything cultural appropriation? Why can't it be representing that part of our culture? Why does it have to be appropriate? Like I don't know.
It's just such a big question, and I know you're trying to open up Pandora's box.
I'm trying to play devil's advocate here.
No, you're right.
I'm playing devil's advocate. That's
I understand, but I think it's a conversation that needs to be had more of, because if the Washington football team or the Washington Commanders were actually a winning team, I don't know if we would be having the same conversation, because we're not having a conversation about Kansas City Chiefs. You know what I'm saying? So it's just maybe I don't know, but that's just what happened. So, folks, that is tonight's Trends Post and Doing the Most. I want to thank my culture crew, Nir Muhammad and Elijah Miles. Thank you so much for both of you for checking in and being a part of the conversations tonight. We truly appreciate it.
Anytime.
Folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. Make sure that you show your support for Black Star Network. As you can see at the bottom of the screen there, you can find different ways to support us here at Black Star Network. And we need your support, because every dollar count, every cent count. And of course, you checking in with us, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or any other space, it does matter. So make sure that you show your support for Black Star Network. Join us, being our fans, download the app, tell your friends and family about Black Star Network, and let's continue to make Black media not just an institution, but a movement. That's going to do it for me. I thank all of you. I thank our fantastic guest, Tatanisha Love. I thank Mr. Tony Segreto, excuse me. And I thank all of you for tuning in tonight. And I thank my wonderful crew. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on Black Star Network. Peace.